Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is a roguelike dungeon crawler set in the Pokemon universe. The series was developed by the dungeon crawling experts Chunsoft, who were later known as Spike Chunsoft. You wake up one day as a Pokemon and you've lost all your memories. You make your first friend and together you form a rescue team and begin fighting your way through randomly generated dungeons where you rescue various Pokemon from natural disasters. During your adventure, you meet a ton of colorful characters and stumble upon many mysteries, but the biggest one of all is why are you here and what is your purpose? Okay, let's talk about the OGs, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team. These two almost identical games came out in 2005 in Japan for the Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo DS respectively. 1 year later, they made their way to the rest of the world and were a great success amongst Pokemon fans. There was even a special anime episode to celebrate their release. Now, confession time. I never played these games as a kid. Fake fan, I know. I'd actually never heard of the Mystery Dungeon series until recently from people online who were worshipping it for the great stories and music. But why are there two separate versions? Well, since the Game Boy Advance was still relevant when it released, the developers wanted to reach a bigger audience, so they made one for the GBA and one for the DS. It's basically the same game though, except that Blue Rescue Team can make use of the second screen of the DS to show you the dungeon map or a team overview. The touchscreen itself doesn't really add anything to the gameplay, it's just another way to press the menu buttons. Another difference worth mentioning is the sound quality. The hardware of the GBA was a bit more limited than that of the DS of course, but some people actually prefer Red Rescue Team's nostalgic MIDI compositions. Lastly, there's a handful of version exclusive Pokemon, 6 per version, but you can actually unlock them all using passwords, so that doesn't matter in the end. Personally, the only benefit I see in playing Blue Rescue Team over Red Rescue Team would be the second screen with the team overview, but I can take it or leave it. I'd say just pick the one that you like more based on the box art, then you're good. Both designs are really cool if you ask me. I especially like the way the two images can be merged into one. It's pretty neat. The art is by Japanese artist Ken Sugimori, who's been the main illustrator and art director for almost everything relating to Pokemon. Pokemon designs, illustrations for the TCG, promotional material. Without him, Pokemon as we know it wouldn't exist. The games are pretty popular amongst fans of the franchise when they came out, but quite a few people were turned off by the dungeon crawling mechanic. I mean, I get it, at first glance it does look pretty boring and repetitive. But still, both versions sold around 5.8 million copies worldwide, which is pretty impressive. You can't quite compare them to the mainline games like Ruby and Sapphire of course, which sold around 16 million copies. But I don't think it's fair to compare spin-off games to the massive juggernaut that is mainline Pokemon. In any case, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team succeeded in launching a new spin-off series and were followed by several sequels that were released for the Nintendo DS and 3DS in later years. But more importantly, they managed to create a small but loyal fan base that keeps the love and passion for the series alive to this day, and that's pretty cool if you ask me. So, what's the deal with Pokemon Mystery Dungeon? Why are we talking about it now, years after its release? In a gaming landscape dominated by flashy graphics and microtransactions, it's refreshing to revisit these classics. Games like these remind me of a simpler era, when developers poured their hearts into every pixel. They were striving to deliver the best possible experience with the limited hardware that they had at their disposal. Despite its age and simplicity, I found myself really enjoying this game. There's something timeless about its charm. I don't think it's a coincidence that modern games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge, Shovel Knight, Stardew Valley, and Celeste emulate the classic 2D pixel graphics of the early days of gaming more and more. Nowadays, I could easily afford the latest consoles and blockbuster titles, but there's a certain nostalgia for the handheld adventures of old that I just can't seem to shake. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon embodies that old school spirit. It offers a grand single-player journey packed into a tiny cartridge. So, what's the game all about? Like I said earlier, it's dungeon crawling with Pokemon. You dive into randomly generated dungeons, battling foes and navigating traps as you progress through missions. It might sound repetitive on paper, but trust me, there's a surprising amount of depth and intensity to the gameplay. Okay, I will admit, I was a bit skeptical at first. Watching gameplay footage didn't exactly get me hyped for the endless dungeon crawling. But then I heard about the game's story and characters. People online couldn't stop raving about them. So I figured why not give it a shot. And boy, am I glad I did. This game may seem straightforward on the surface, but beneath its simple mechanics lies a captivating tale that keeps you coming back for more. It's a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected journeys turn out to be the most rewarding. Now, let's talk about something unique to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the personality test. It's a feature I've never encountered in any other game. Picture those quirky quizzes you find in magazines, determining what type of food or superhero you are. Well, in this case, you're assigned a Pokemon based on your answers. The questions are randomized each time you start a new game, adding an element of surprise and fun. You are then matched with one of 16 Pokemon and you get a short description of your personality. The first time I played Red Rescue Team, I got Charmander, which is pretty cool. At first I thought that every time I do the test I'd probably get a different Pokemon, but when I started playing Blue Rescue Team for my second playthrough, I did the test twice more and got Charmander both times. So maybe there is some truth to that personality quiz, who knows. After the quiz comes the moment to choose your partner Pokemon. However, there's a twist this time. You can only select from the starter Pokemon up to Generation 3, and those sharing a type with your character are excluded. This ensures a balanced team, preventing you from being caught off guard by unexpected type matchups in dungeons. But that's okay, I was gonna pick Mudkip anyway, he's awesome. Once you've selected your character and partner, it's time to dive into the adventure. You wake up as a Pokemon, meet your partner, and before you know it, you're embarking on your first rescue mission. The game wastes no time in immersing you in its world, throwing you straight into a tutorial dungeon where you learn the basics organically as you progress. As you navigate through the dungeon, you receive helpful tips on combat, item usage, and more. It's a simple and efficient way to get you up to speed without overwhelming you with information. After successfully rescuing a lost Caterpie and impressing your partner with your skills, they propose forming a rescue team to assist other Pokemon in need. You agree, marking the beginning of your true adventure. A journey punctuated by the title screen, a subtle yet powerful signal that your quest has officially begun. This reminds me of other iconic titles like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, setting the tone for the epic journey ahead. Now, let's talk about the gameplay loop. It's a cycle of mail, dungeon, sleep, repeat, a rhythm that defines your daily routine in the game. Each day begins with you waking up in your cozy little home, meeting your partner, and receiving mail from Pelipper. Your mailbox becomes your lifeline, delivering requests for rescues, gameplay tips, and snippets of lore. After your daring rescue in Thunderwave Cave, it's time to hit the hay again and experience your first dream sequence in the game. While this initial dream doesn't offer much in terms of plot development, it sets the stage for a recurring storytelling element that adds depth to the narrative. The next morning, your partner introduces you to Pokemon Square, a charming village bustling with activity and personality. Despite its modest size, Pokemon Square oozes charm and ambience, making it one of the most memorable locations in any Pokemon game I've ever played. Here you'll find shops and essential services, such as the Kecleon shop for supplies, Felicity Bank for managing your finances, and Kangaskhan storage for storing items. But perhaps the most intriguing spot is the Pelipper post office, where you can pick up additional rescue missions from the bulletin board. It also looks the coolest. I mean, look at it. And since I've mentioned the Pelipper post office, it's a good time to talk about the multiplayer aspect of the game. The Pelipper post office serves as a hub for friend rescues where players can come to each other's aid in times of need. If a friend's team has fallen in a dungeon, they can send out an SOS mail calling for assistance. As the hero, you have the option to accept their plea and embark on a rescue mission to save them. If successful, you can send an AOK mail to revive their team and continue their adventure. But wait, there's more. You can also send a helper Pokemon to aid your friend in their dungeon escapades, trade items, share rescue missions, and even unlock additional dungeons by inputting special codes obtained from Nintendo events. I think that's a pretty cool mechanic. It matches the main theme of the game really well. But there's another multiplayer feature exclusive to Blue Rescue Team that is so weird and obscure that I'd be surprised if anyone has ever used it. The Unknown Dungeon, aka Contact Mode. To activate it, you need to, get this, close the DS screen without turning it off and head outside. If, by some miraculous twist of fate, you happen to encounter another player who has done the same, you might engage in contact mode communication. This surreal feature could result in your Pokemon embarking on a mission, recruiting new allies, and acquiring valuable items. Now, call me crazy, but I'd say that even if you tried doing this back in 2006, the chances of it working without prior coordination with someone else are minus infinity. As I mentioned earlier, the mail dungeon sleep repeat cycle, interspersed with plot-related cutscenes, forms the backbone of the gameplay experience. Each mission representing a single in-game day might seem like a small detail, but it adds a layer of immersion that subtly draws you into the world. It's a simple yet effective way to make you feel like you've spent a significant amount of time in this universe, even though it's only been a few hours in real time. Another aspect of the game that I appreciate is the bond you develop with your team. In the mainline Pokemon games, your team consists of Pokemon stored in Pokeballs, and you only send them out for battles, except for Heart Gold and Soul Silver. However, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon flips this script entirely. As a Pokemon yourself, you're constantly surrounded by your teammates, whom you've saved and recruited along the journey, so it no longer feels like you're collecting them like stamps. Additionally, the roles you and your partner Pokemon play are integral to the story. Throughout the adventure, you rely on each other for support, facing challenges together and experiencing the highs and lows of the journey. This bond forms the heart of the game, creating a connection with these characters that transcends the typical trainer-Pokemon relationship found in the mainline games. It's an experience that's truly unique to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. It offers a level of emotional depth and attachment that's hard to find elsewhere. But let's talk about the actual dungeon crawling for a minute. Even though it's probably hard to tell, the whole thing is turn-based, so the enemies only move when you move. This gives you ample time to strategize your next move. Will you launch a ranged attack with an item or a wide-ranging move? How will you position your team for maximum effectiveness? Do you need to heal or conserve power points for a crucial move? The possibilities are endless, and each decision carries weight. But the challenges don't stop at battling. As you navigate through the dungeon, you must keep an eye on various things like your hunger meter, your team's HP and PP, traps lurking around every corner, as well as your limited inventory. As the story progresses, more and more items, abilities, and gameplay mechanics will be unlocked. This will allow you to gradually get a better grasp on the game. I have to say though, the harder the game got, the more fun I had. There's a palpable tension as you near the end of a dungeon. Your team is all beat up, resources dwindling, enemies keep on coming. It's these moments of high stakes and intense strategizing that truly define the essence of the game. Fortunately, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon offers ample opportunities for grinding. Each completed dungeon generates new rescue missions, providing avenues for accumulating money, items, and most importantly, experience points. While your Pokemon may not evolve until the post-game, leveling up increases their stats and grants access to more powerful moves. Speaking of which, one thing the game doesn't do is give you information about move power and accuracy, which is a bit weird. You kind of have to try every move for yourself or find a guide online with all the move data. I found a pretty good one actually, but I'll talk about it more in detail in the post-game section of this video. Now I want to talk about the story a bit. Even though these games are not the ones that the fanbase puts in #1 spot in terms of story, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'll keep this part spoiler free though, because I think that the story is the best thing about this game, and I don't want to deprive you from discovering it for yourself. At its core, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is an isekai tale, a genre where individuals find themselves transported to and must survive in a different world. You've likely encountered this concept in various forms of media, from classic literature like Alice in Wonderland to beloved anime series like Digimon Adventure. There's something inherently captivating about being thrust into an unfamiliar world, unraveling its mysteries, forging new connections, and ultimately returning home with memories of your extraordinary journey. And that is precisely what this game offers. Throughout your adventures, you encounter various Pokemon, each with their own struggles and stories. You witness firsthand the impact of natural disasters on the Pokemon world, from devastated landscapes to displaced Pokemon searching desperately for safety. These encounters evoke feelings of empathy and a sense of responsibility within you as you strive to help those in need. But it's not just the overarching plot that shines in this game. The dialogue is equally impressive. The humorous moments are genuinely funny, while the sad ones will tug at your heartstrings. At no point does any part of the story feel forced or redundant, and the overall pacing is great from start to finish. I'm kind of amazed at how good the story is, to be honest, because this is a Pokemon game after all. The mainline games are infamous for having the blandest Saturday morning cartoon plots, but clearly Chunsoft values storytelling quite a bit more. As you delve deeper into the mystery surrounding your transformation and the disasters plaguing the world, you confront your own insecurities and doubts. You grapple with questions of identity and purpose, wrestling with the weight of your newfound role in this unfamiliar world. Several key characters stand out for their unique personalities and significance to the story. First and foremost, there's you, the protagonist. Your journey from confusion and fear to bravery and self-discovery forms the emotional core of the narrative. Despite being thrust into a world you don't understand, you demonstrate remarkable resilience and compassion, forging deep connections with the Pokemon you meet along the way. Another central character is your partner Pokemon, who accompanies you on your journey and provides support throughout your adventures. Their unwavering loyalty and boundless optimism inspire you to persevere in the face of adversity. Additionally, several other characters play significant roles in the story, each bringing their own unique perspectives and contributions to your journey. From wise mentors to unlikely allies, these characters help shape your understanding of the Pokemon world and your place within it. Whether it's the enigmatic Gardevoir, whose cryptic guidance leads you closer to the truth, or the courageous rescue team members who stand shoulder to shoulder with you in times of need, each character leaves a lasting impression. Together, these characters form a vibrant tapestry of personalities, enriching your experience and deepening your emotional investment in this world. In the end, the game is not just about solving mysteries or completing missions. It's about the journey of self-discovery, the bonds of friendship, and the courage to face the unknown with determination and compassion. If there's one thing that Pokemon Mystery Dungeon shares with the mainline Pokemon games, it's a beefy post-game. In addition to the 16 dungeons in the main storyline, you unlock an additional 24 dungeons in the post-game, along with numerous friend areas that expand your roster of recruitable Pokemon. Using codes to obtain version exclusive from the opposite game, you can complete your collection with all 386 Pokemon from the first 3 generations, including legendary and mythical Pokemon. Achieving such a feat in the mainline games, especially in the earlier generations, was nearly impossible, making this aspect of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon truly special and unique. If you do decide to go down the completionist path, however, make sure you're mentally prepared and have about 100 more hours to spare, because recruiting them all is no easy feat. Unlocking friend areas and befriending Pokemon is no small task, and some legendary and mythical Pokemon have incredibly low recruitment rates or can be found only at the end of daunting 99th floor dungeons. This isn't something that I would do now with my extremely limited free time as an adult, but I'm 100% sure that if I'd played this game as a kid, I would have caught each and every one of these little buggers. Unlike the linear progression of the main storyline, the post-game content in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon offers a more flexible yet complex experience. Once the credits roll, you're on your own. The official guide I found online, and I'll put the link to it in the description, has an actual flowchart that explains how to unlock all the post-game dungeons and stories. Now, call me crazy, but if you need a flowchart to explain to someone how to play your game, you probably overcomplicated it just a little bit. I understand the desire to make the postgame harder and more challenging for the hardcore players, but this isn't the way. The most annoying part is that there is actually a small but really good postgame quest that continues the antagonist's story that I really wanted to play through, but had to use the flowchart just so I could figure out how to start the quest. It was worth it, but it was still annoying. One very important change about the postgame gameplay is that you can finally completely change your team composition and are no longer tied to your main character and partner Pokemon. You can go choose any Pokemon you've recruited, make them the team leader, and they will become your new avatar. This is a huge upgrade because some post-game dungeons upped the difficulty to ridiculous levels that were required to optimize the hell out of your team by picking the best types, moves, and abilities. This was yet another moment when I realized how attached I'd become to my main character and partner Pokemon, however. As soon as I swapped them out for other team members, something just didn't feel right. We've been through so much stuff together after all. And guess what? You can finally evolve your Pokemon in the post-game. There's a shrine next to Whiscash Pond hidden underground where you can take your team leader for a glow up. This is great and all, but personally, I don't want to evolve my buddies. They just won't be the same anymore, If you want to have an easier time with the post-game dungeons, however, it's a good idea to evolve your team. Otherwise, you will suffer a lot. But what will help you even more is the official guide that I mentioned earlier. It can help you cheat in the quiz so that you can get the starter that you want, give you helpful tips for dungeon crawling and team building and so on. You'll also find detailed lists with all the friend areas and the Pokemon that they unlock, all the items in the game, all the Pokemon and the moves that they learn, all the TMs, moves, abilities, as well as detailed information for every single dungeon. If you want to kick ass in the post game, this guide will be super helpful. It's absolutely not necessary for the main game, however. But whether you're diving into Pokemon Mystery Dungeon for a quick adventure or settling in for a long post-game grind, one thing that's bound to enhance your experience is the stunning graphics. It's no wonder that the Game Boy Advance era pixel art remains the gold standard for handheld gaming aesthetics. This is a general look that modern games with pixel graphics emulate most often. The sprites are simple but expressive, the backgrounds are charming and very pleasant to look at, and the colors, they pop right off the screen. You could play this game today, tomorrow, or a century from now, and it would still look just as stunning. It's timeless, really, a testament to the enduring appeal of pixel art done right. I cannot talk about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, however, without mentioning the music. The OST in this video game series has been praised by the community for years, and I definitely understand why. Every dungeon has its own track, setting the mood for dungeon crawling and giving each dungeon its own vibe. Some of my favorites are Thunderwave Cave, Great Canyon, and Sky Tower, which is absolutely epic. But where the soundtrack really shines is during the emotional moments in the game. The music enhances these moments, pulling at your heartstrings and making them all the more impactful. I'll leave a link to the OST below so you can go check it out for yourself. The attention to detail in these games does not end with the graphics and music, however. It's the little things that really make this game stand out. Take for instance the various designs for the rescue bases. Sure, they're not essential to the gameplay, but they add so much charm to the experience. Each Pokemon you get assigned by the quiz comes with its own unique style of rescue base, both inside and out. And that's not all. Every rescue base design has multiple versions depending on where you are in the game. You've got your basic look, the construction site, and your post-renovation glow-up. It's like a Pokemon-themed home makeover show. You'll start off with one of 5 possible basic designs that correspond to a different group of starters, like one for the grass starters, one for the fire starters, and so on. Later on though, your partner Pokemon hires a group of Mankeys to upgrade your rescue base. I'm truly amazed at the attention to detail with this, as the developers could have completely skipped the construction phase by going 1 hour later and just, jump straight to the finished design. On top of that, they created 5 brand new designs for the interior and 16 new designs for the exterior of the rescue base, one for each starter, even down to the custom mailbox. And let's not forget about the friend areas. Instead of relegating all your Pokemon buddies to a digital storage system access to a PC like in the mainline games, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon goes above and beyond with a total of 57 friend areas, each with its own unique design. There's just enough space in each area for one of every species, allowing you to interact with your Pokemon pals, feed them gummies, check their stats, and take them on missions. Each friend area comes with its own distinct vibe, and there's a different track playing for each group of locations. Sure, the developers could have taken the easy route and packed all these functions into a simple menu, but that wouldn't be as charming, right? In this case, I'm more than happy to trade a bit of convenience for a more immersive and engaging experience. Something else I wanted to mention are the small Easter eggs that were reserved for the most dedicated players of the game. If you fulfill certain conditions like reaching the highest rescue team rank or beating all the training areas in the Makuhito Dojo, you will unlock 4 statues depicting the Gen 4 Pokemon Bonsly, Lucario, Mime Jr., and Weavile. Additionally, Lucario is mentioned by an NPC in the game as being the best rescuer of all time. Seeing as these games came out 1 year before the mainline Generation 4 games Diamond and Pearl, these 4 statues would have been a cool little sneak peek for the fans. This is something Pokemon will do quite often during its early generations. Some spin-off games like Pokemon Ranger even made it possible to transfer spin-off exclusive Pokemon like Manaphy to the mainline games, which is a great feature that I wish had been implemented in the Mystery Dungeon games as well, especially with Pokemon like Celebi that can only be found at the end of 99 floor dungeons, and recruiting them is so difficult. It would have been a great reward for the player to be able to transfer this otherwise unobtainable Pokemon to the mainline games. It would be way cooler and more sustainable than restricting them to Nintendo events, that's for sure. But even without this feature, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team were a resounding success amongst Pokemon fans. They kickstarted the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series, paving the way for a pair of sequels on Nintendo DS 2 years later. Explorers of Time and Explorers of Darkness. They also received a remake for the Nintendo Switch in 2020. While I haven't had the chance to dive into it yet, from what I've seen, it looks pretty cool. Personally, I'm incredibly glad that I gave this game a chance. It's a reminder not to judge a book by its cover, or a game by its dungeon crawling, I guess. If you're in the market for a small adventure with a big heart, if you're a fan of charming pixel graphics reminiscent of days gone by, if you're a Pokemon enthusiast looking to experience the franchise in a fresh way, or if you simply want to lose yourself in another world for a while, then I wholeheartedly recommend giving this game a try. In the words of the legendary Rayquaza, take charge of your destiny.